Welcome back, listeners, to a brand new episode of The New Standard. And we're coming to you on December 23rd, 2023, shortly after the Steelers' dominant victory over the Cincinnati Bengals to get themselves back in the hunt for the playoffs. And as always, I have my partner in crime to my left, Big Neil. What's up, Big Neil? Merry Christmas to you, sir, and the Coolongs.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody. You especially, though, Lance, you and your family for having to put up with you the way that they do. Just fantastic, kind, patient people. We are in a fantastic mood, Lance, and you want to know why? Because the Steelers just defeated the Bengals 34-11. 30, what? Wasn't it 34?
Yeah,
31-11. 34-11. Why is this not refreshing? 34-11. This was, by any measure, the best game this team has played in probably 5 years. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. Tell me if I'm wrong. They elected the Steelers won the toss and elected to kick the bejesus out of the Bengals in this game. This was never a competition. I will admit, if we are going to throw a little bit of coal in people's stockings for this game, I don't think the Bengals played particularly well, to put it mildly. That was a nightmare game for them. Jake Browning returned to earth in the fashion that we figured that he would at some point. He's no longer out taunting the Vikings for having cut him. He looked like the quarterback that he probably should be in most games. Two terrible decisions on interceptions, ineffective for the vast majority of the game. One interception at the end was a fantastic play by Alex Highsmith, who might have played his best game as a pro. Steelers dominated this wire to wire. The highlight of that, George Pickens with a Randy Moss-like 4-catch, 195-yard, 2-touchdown performance, pacing the Steelers, starting from the first play of the game, 86-yard, skinny post, caught, catch and run, touchdown pass, which set up star number 2 of the game, Mason Rudolph, who came from... We wanted him to come from obscurity. He didn't even come from obscurity. He came from like the armpit of obscurity. Nobody wanted Mason Rudolph, myself included, myself probably in particular. He played a phenomenal game today. Not an all-pro level game, but he made good decisions. He was poised in the pocket. Now, anybody else have a good laugh when he almost took the safety at the end of the game? That would have been perfect.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
Yeah.
You're killing me, Mason. I'm about to praise you for everything that you did, and you almost take a safety. Good on him for getting out of the way, though. I mean, he hasn't done that in the past, so it shows he had some awareness in this one. I thought he played very well. He played like a veteran quarterback, like you would hope a backup quarterback would come in and play. The Steelers lost the last 2 games because they did not have a backup quarterback who came in and played at that level. Season is completely different if they had that. We'll get into that all off season. I'm sure that now is a very interesting decision to make. 2 of them, really. Do you go with the hot hand Mason Rudolph next week in another must-win game at Seattle? Or is Kenny Pickett going to be healthy enough to play? Or does that matter?
I'm glad you brought that up, Neil Stradamus Coulong. And before we jump into that, I want to jump into Brother Jay's point. Great prediction, Lance. Blah. Yeah, I got that wrong, Brother Jay. But I wanted to ask you a question, Brother Jay. Are you Brother Jay from X Clan with a key, you sissies? Tell me you're Brother Jay from X Clan, outstanding MC from Brooklyn. Used to be the front man for X Clan. Hopefully I am talking to Brother Jay with a key. But before we get into the question of the quarterback, I want to wish everybody out here who's listening to the program a happy holidays, Festivus, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever you partake in. I want to wish you that. I want to give you a happy holiday tidings. Hopefully everybody was able to watch the game and do it safely. Hopefully everybody's out there can have a great holiday season and bring it in with festive love and cheer. You see how happy I am, Neil? How my tone just really changes when the Steelers win and we don't have to philosophize about what's happening next. And by the way, as before we get into the question about the quarterback, there was a bombshell nugget, if you believe it to be true, that was dropped by Mike Florio, that there is no issue or no controversy about the return of Mike Tomlin, and that they're currently negotiating a long-term contract, and that Mike Tomlin will be back in the near future and moving forward as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your thoughts on the bombshell dropped by Florio? Or was it a bombshell?
I think he couched it a little bit more than that. It was not a breaking news item as much as it was, we're going to address this because we have to, and whatever source it is that Florio spoke with isn't going to tell him that they're going to fire Mike Tomlin. Okay, that's not going to happen leading into a game with Mike Florio of all people. That is not to say that that's not a possible outcome, if not a likely outcome. I can see that, but I still would like to point out, whether they're talking about it or not, he does not have a contract extension. What that means more than anything is he did not sign one last year. So there is some referendum on Mike Tomlin, or it's Mike Tomlin having a referendum on the team. One way or another, it wasn't signed. If that is 48 hours after the season, what they do wouldn't surprise me, but they're going to have to do that in order to move forward with the offseason. So it is something that matters. It is something of significance. I don't think that that's something they're going to say definitively today, though. There's still some time left in this season. If they have ever negotiated a coach's contract in the middle of the season, I never would have heard of it anyway. But I don't think it's something that it is significant. It's not surprising that that's what you would hear. None of that, though, changes the fact he did not have an extension last year. And to me, that's really the more important thing. The fact of the matter is, though, a team that played its best game, certainly offensively, in a very, very long time, in difficult circumstances, even if the game is at home against an opponent, not a very strong quarterback. They had two other games like this recently that didn't go in their favor. The fact that they could pull this off says something. And it does show there's reason to have some optimism about this team. That is their 8th win of the season. In the old metrics, the old scoring system, Tomlin would have just clinched another non-losing season. He's got to get one more now. 2 games to go. Playoffs on the line. They're at Seattle. It is a very, very difficult road trip. And from there, playing the Ravens in Baltimore, a game that might not have any significance for Baltimore at all, except if they were to lock up the bye heading into that, they would play their starters. Odds are very good you're going to get Baltimore's best in that game. So it's a long way from over for Tomlin and the Steelers this season, but it is important to note that there is reason to wonder what exactly happened, what the expectations internally really were, and what that does for the team's moves moving forward. Does this save Eddie Faulkner's position, Mike Sullivan's position? Is 2 decent games, which happen to be vastly better than anything else that we've seen over the last 2 years. Both of those against the hapless Bengals, who are probably going to fall to the basement of the AFC North. Is that enough to say Eddie Faulkner / Mike Sullivan, this is the tandem we want to go with? This is how we're going to do it. That's the real question here. And there's still 2 games left to decide that.
I'm going to raise my hand and answer that question. And here's a couple of things on that. I am not falling off I don't want Tomlin back. I'm firmly in that camp. I'm firmly in that camp for the fact that the Steelers now, with 34 points, probably raised their points per game up from 15.9 to about 16.3. Yes, fantastic, vanglorious. And thank you, Grim, for bringing that up with the vanglorious X-Clan reference. And Brother Jay, can we call you Brother Vanglorious? Can we call you Vanglorious on this show? Or can we call you Brother X?
Who are you talking
Let us know. Brother X, Brother J. See, Neil, let me knowledge you on this. Neil, there was a group back in the late 80s, early 90s called X-Clan. And their lead rapper was Brother J from Brooklyn. And their slogan, I guess, was Vanglorious with the key, you sissies. And so they used to do that on every song. So if you know, so Neil's like, what the hell is X-Clan? So
That
Neil,
didn't pick up, huh?
so
That
Neil,
wasn't a thing.
so when you we end the show, go look up X-Clan. And so like yeah, so Marcus J is like X-Clan, that's old school. Absolutely, X-Clan is old school. But I'm firmly on the Tomlin out train because of the same reasons before with the offense, his issues with offense. And it's interesting that you bring up the point about the construction and moving forward. Is this enough to keep the current regime in place with the offense? Because I would imagine you're scrapping Canada's offense. And part of what you're going to do in the offseason is create and craft a new offense around your personality. That is the hope. So my thought is, if that's the hope, and we don't know, if you don't have either of those two guys around and you bring in another coordinator, Eric Bieniemy say, he's bringing his system, another system, new coach, new voice, new vision, new everything in terms of how to coach it, install it, everything. So I'm like, you got to move forward with the offense. But the one thing about it, to Florio's point, before we jump into this game, and this was a meteor game. Like, I saw Haley's Comet fly by in this particular game today. We don't know what's going on in the building. We think we do. We can speculate on what's going on in the building, but the way we see it is not necessarily the way they see it. They are being very real with themselves inside the building. They know the roster, they know the talent, they know what the expectation or the proper expectations are. From the outside looking in as fans, we think the expectation is always a world championship, but that might not be the expectation in the building. But let's jump into this game. Quarterback controversy? We got a quarterback controversy going into Seattle.
Let's lay this out, because I think there are two ways to look at this. They waited a bit. Mike Tomlin pulled the we'll leave the door open for Kenny Pickett this week. I think in some sense we don't have any faith in their third string quarterback, even if he has started in the NFL. There's a reason we bypassed him pretty much every step of free agency until it was like, okay, fine, now let's bring him in. He was not a priority. He's not paid very much. The reason he's on the team, truthfully, is because teams can roster a third quarterback and dress him on game day without penalty. Now, they have to use a practice squad spot for it, but most teams are doing what the Steelers have done this year: keep the third quarterback for this kind of situation. It gave you some roster flexibility. They wanted Pickett on the field. The only thing that we know for absolute certainty, in fairness, was there is no way in hell Mitch Trubisky was starting this game if Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph was healthy. So rule him out unless the unthinkable happens again. They were going with healthy Pickett if that was their opportunity. If it was going to be Rudolph, that's what they have to go with. Then that's fine. That's not likely the decision that they have to make next week. Okay, we don't know where Pickett is today. Truthfully, we know that he practiced a little bit, I think, right? He did not get activated for the game. He was out. So if he is able to play, logically, you would think it would be Pickett. But at the same time, this is a road game, which, I hate to point this out, anyone who's ever flown before with any type of injury, you can aggravate it on a plane, especially a 5-hour flight, Pittsburgh to Seattle. I've made that flight. It's brutal. It's a completely different day by the time you land. That's a hard trip. If you're going to Baltimore, I think it's a different story, but it's a long flight. It's a shorter, you get the extra day now. They play Sunday next week, right? You might be able to mitigate that if Pickett is 100%. But you have to think, if he's 85%, do you really want him to go when you have kind of the element of surprise going for you with Rudolph? They didn't put a ton of film down, some good stuff. I would argue too, fairly, and I'm betting once we break the film down and kind of look at this, Cincinnati's defense screwed up a lot today. They did not play a very good game. So I don't know how much of this truly was Rudolph, or if Pickett would not have been able to do anything that Rudolph did today. All I know is Trubisky would not have. And thank you. I want to bring this up. simply because this to me is the play of the year. Mason Rudolph, third and X, I forget exactly what it was, 7, 8, something like that. He tucks it to run. Now, as you saw, Mason Rudolph looks like a giraffe in the open field. Okay, nobody is worried about his speed. He tucked the ball. He ran forward. There's going to be collision at or around the first down marker. He did not hit his butt the way Trubisky did. He put his shoulder down, his head down. He went forward. He picked up the first down. I even said it to my wife, who was sitting next to me during the game. They're going to score on the next play. Just watch. I don't care where it is. I don't care what happens. They're scoring because everyone is fired up after a play like that. And you saw it. They pushed the line. Harris had to move him back a bit. He got 2 pretty tough yards. The line was not quitting. And the fact that Rudolph is the guy who inspired that, he brought that out of everybody else. I know I'm being kind of dramatic about it, but considering we saw Trubisky slide short of a first down on a third down play, I was cheering at that point for Rudolph. Hell of a play of the season, in my opinion. And if for no other reason than he put everything out there for the team. The week after, we had receivers not blocking for people. We have teammates taking snipes at other people on the team. Rudolph has nothing but his future to play for, and he's playing with the rest of the team. And good for him. That's what a leader does. He impressed me a lot today.
You know, I as they say back in the day, mama never lied. I think it's all facts. Everything you said about Mason is facts. I think when you look at this quarterback controversy, only thing I would add, and I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. The only thing I would add, and it'll be interesting to see how having a Sunday off and playing the home game in terms of recovery helps Kenny Pickett possibly get back, because the week will be a little bit longer to possibly offset that long trip out to Seattle. I think what'll happen next week is I think Mason Rudolph will get the start, but I think Kenny will be on the short hook. I think if Mason is not playing well, I think you see Kenny Pickens on a short hook, because they got to win that game. That they have to win that game if they have any chance of going to the playoffs. But let's jump into the other big elephant in the room. And again, listeners, you're checking out the new standard. Please hit us with a like and subscribe. Also, please, I put a link to I always forget what the name of those are. The to Doug's what are those called? The fundraiser. I just call it the fundraiser. I put a link to the GoFundMe for the GoFundMe for Doug Farrar, friend of the program. If you feel a soul in your heart, please hit that and contribute to the GoFundMe for his daughter in this holiday season. Again, you're checking out the new standard. The other elephant in the room, and that's why this game is named, or this show is named, Trey Who? Bench What? And that's why you saw George Pickens look at the camera, do the mouth symbol, and put his hands over his ears. We talked about it in the last show. A head coach's number one obligation is to win football games. It's not to motivate somebody. It's not to educate somebody. It's not any of that. That's part of the job description. And if any of you, I put it on X or Twitter or whatever they're calling it earlier this week, if any of you are parents of teenagers, you can't motivate them to do anything. I mean, I mean, ultimately, somebody has to want to do it. And he did the best thing that you could do. And we said this on the previous show. When you're dealing with a ton of controversy, shut the hell up and ball. 4 receptions, 195. He averaged 48.8 a catch. He averaged half
no answer
a
for
football
him.
A
Awuzie was in junior high compared to Pickens, collegiate All-American in that game. Absolutely no chance. I laughed when they had Mike Hilton on Calvin Austin at one point, and that made me laugh until I realized it's because they've got everybody else underneath and over on Pickens, and Pickens still beat him deep. Pickens has a boatload of talent. Nobody ever denied that. What Pickens did last week is not acceptable. I'll trust Mike Tomlin to do what he needs to do with his team, but the reality is you can't do what Pickens did. It damages the team. Pickens today came and played the game hard, and they gave him opportunities to contribute.
Absolutely. You knew they would.
They didn't reinvent football. It was a skinny post on the first play. 5 Bengals tacklers missed him. I don't know how. That's on them, but he made a play when he got the ball. I'd put that on their defense, probably more so than Rudolph or Pickens, but we're going to celebrate it like it's the greatest play of all time. It's the deep shot down the left sideline on Awuzie that you really saw the ability that he has to get open deep when he gets those opportunities. And how many targets did he have?
6.
It wasn't all that many. They got him the ball the same amount of time that they usually do. He stayed engaged, though. They kept him engaged, and he got better opportunities. That's what's needed here for everything. That'll keep him engaged. I'm not saying you need to placate for him, but you do need to get your star player the ball.
And those 4 catches, that 198 yards, and if you look at the game book, the Steelers had 290 yards passing. He had 195 of those. And that's why trade who? Bench what? Will always be the theme until it's not the theme with George Pickens, because his talent is not in question. He is an elite talent, and when he is engaged, he makes plays. And but to Neil's point, he has to mature as a professional, and you can only encourage a player to mature. If he doesn't, then he's gone at some point. You can't force a person to be mature. The coach has got to make them account. No, these are grown men. They're either going to figure out that they need to be accountable professionals or they're not, and you have to make a decision. But his talent, which we saw displayed tonight, is going to make that a very difficult decision. Let me jump into a couple other numbers from the game book. Steelers were 7 of 14 on third down, 2 of 3 in the red zone. They had 397 yards of offense. I'm going to go ahead and round that up to 400. They have 300 yards of passing, actually 298. I'm going to round that up again because it's the Christmas season. We're feeling festive. So we're talking about things that we are mysteriously didn't think we would witness in the game. We saw Mike Tomlin win 2 challenges. We saw the Steelers score more than 30 points. We saw them have 100 yards rushing in a game. We basically saw them have 300 yards passing. We basically saw them have 400 yards of offense and convert 50% of their third downs. You're a much better historian than I am, Neil. I'm going to guess this hasn't happened since the Ice Age.
It's you're talking pre-elbow injury Ben Roethlisberger Steelers, probably the last time that's happened. And I had a little bit more hair back then. I probably weighed a little bit more. And it's to put all of that together. You and I, Lance, have talked for a long time of the value of splash plays, and they haven't had splash plays until tonight. They have not had splash plays at all. Honestly, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to slam on Pickens or anything, but that first play was so bad by Cincinnati. They're going to get shredded for that. The Steelers gave up one of those on Higgins' touchdown. That wasn't the greatest thing you've ever seen. But then Pickens did it again, and you see the athletic ability that he has. The second one was a thing of beauty. That was a real high-quality play, in my opinion. But putting all that aside, I do think it's fair to point out the parallel here, because the issue was Pickens standing around because he doesn't want to get rolled up on during a run that Jaylen Warren gets stopped at like the 1 foot line. Jaylen Warren threw one of the nastiest, loudest blocks you will ever see or hear in the NFL on Pickens, on the the Austin end around, which sprung his guy for a touchdown. I saw him, somebody else weigh in if you saw more than this. I saw 2 times that Warren stepped up and stoned a blitzer. I mean, just stoned him. Jaylen Warren's not a big guy, okay? He got in there and he got after it. He played the game like a man today. And while Pickens, yes, he deserves all the accolades that he gets, it's worth noting there are superstars in this game that didn't put up the same types of stats. When you have all of these things together, Highsmith's performance, Watt's performance, I thought for a ragtag secondary that we thought was going to get absolutely torched today.
We haven't even talked about the defense.
Every unit, oddly enough, with the exception of special teams, which really didn't kind of do anything. They played well in every position level, and they haven't done this in a long time. It's amazing. We could go on for longer than what we were scheduled to go on for, going over the accolades. Pickens deserves his due. I'm not trying to take away from that. This was a team win. Ironically, it really was. Pickens has his best game, and in my opinion, while he gets top billing, the rest of the team showed up and showed out today in a way they have not done this season. An incredibly impressive win.
Nice reference, Neil. I'm sure you meant to refer to another hip hop classic, Top Billing. MCMI.
No,
people
I did
call
not.
me Milk. We know you're a hip hop fan, Neil. We know you got lyrics. Neil got bars.
Yeah,
Neil Bars at Neil Bars. BARZ MC and Neil. People call me Milk. But let's jump into the super chat from Grayson. Thank you, Grayson, for the super chat. And Grayson wrote, keeping Mike T is keeping the status quo, remaining a 50-50 ball club until he evolves as a coach. In his 17-year tenure, 9-10 plus seasons, 7-9-7, 500 seasons. Until Mike T changes, nothing will. I mean, you know where I stand on it. I'm not confident.
I'm sorry. Let's not act like he's choosing that. Okay, it's just stupid.
Yes.
It's a dumb point. Well, leadership is the same. He aims for 9-7 so he could continue the streak. I promise you, Mike Tomlin does not give a shit about that. He really doesn't. He's not that kind of guy at all. Fans care way more about it. One side or the other, they care way more about it. At the end of the day, he wants to win football games. If you're going to fault him for that, okay, fine. I think they all want to win football games, but he does consistently. And I also am of the group that I think it's probably time to make a change. That has nothing to do with the only thing he wants to do is keep his streak going. That's ridiculous. Don't be intentionally stupid. Okay. It's if you don't like Tomlin, the direction of the team, I don't blame you. I don't really either. I like Tomlin. I just don't think this situation works anymore. The streak has nothing to do with anything other than people like me using it to piss people like you off because it's fun. You guys go crazy over it.
Bullshit. And again about Tomlin, the reason why I want Tomlin out is just offensively, I don't have faith in his ability to build an offense that's good enough to compete for a championship. Let's say Mike is back, right? And let's say all that happens, right? What Florio's report is true. I mean, I don't necessarily trust Tomlin to bring in a great offensive staff.
That's really the question.
I mean, that's it. I don't
really as much about Tomlin. What are they doing? That's what I care more about. If, in my opinion, though, it's lockstep. Okay, if you're going to they're not bringing back Tomlin and then saying, okay, what do we want to do? They're deciding what they want to do. Then they're going to offer the extension if everybody's on the same page. If they're not, he's going to walk. Okay, that's just business. You wouldn't bother signing the one guy and then thinking about everything else. They know him. He's in the building. They have to have an idea of what they want to do. If Rooney and Tomlin are butting heads over money, over what they want to do with their staff, then maybe that's a reason that they walk. If they are together on it, though, they will know what that plan is. Then the extension will be signed. But they are absolutely not extending him until they know what they want to do with their coaching staff. And in my opinion, great game today. Move on. You've got a clean house there.
Yes, I mean, you've got to. And I'm hoping that they could entice a Bieniemy if he doesn't want to be a head coach to be an OC, or you get somebody from the Shanahan tree. get somebody, because I mean, and to George Pickens' interesting comments, and correct me if I'm wrong, did the head coach of Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, did he ever play college football at all? I'm thinking he
No,
didn't.
have you seen
No.
that guy?
Yeah, I'm thinking he didn't. So that was the
He's
funny
like
thing.
5'9", 140.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I kept laughing about when Pickens made the comments, is that one of the best offensive minds is a guy that never played college football. I
Hey,
mean, it's about coaching.
the
It's
father
about
of the
coaching.
Soviet Red Army hockey team never played hockey. They didn't even know, literally didn't know what hockey was. You know, it's not about playing the game. It's about advancing it. It's about finding
Teaching.
advantages in what you're doing, and then the ability to teach that to other
To
people.
teach it, yes, teach it, communicate it. But we would be remiss before we get out of here if we did not give major props to this defense that was down basically everybody, that played a great game. 3 interceptions in the game. Let me count the sacks. I'm guessing they had about 5 or 6
5, I
sacks
want
in
to
the
say.
game.
Yeah.
Let me look here. They actually only had 3 sacks. It seemed like more
3.
sacks,
A lot
but
of
they had
pressure.
8 tackles for loss, a lot of
Yeah.
pressures,
Okay.
7 pass
Might have
defense.
called a few of those runs.
Outstanding game. And before I let you jump in and give your breakdown of the defense, I mean, we have to say, look, man, we being a little haterish on this, but Hansy Jr., of course, got a holding. he 14
12 since
penalties,
week
40 years,
4.
12. Yes, it's week
I
4.
have it at 12. They said 13 on the broadcast.
They
Maybe
said
I'm wrong,
13.
but
Hansy, man. Hansy has got to. Great play in the end zone.
I love it too.
Great.
People are booing, and based on the social media reaction, you don't know whether they're booing because they think the call was bad, or they're booing because it's Porter again. The passes that people have given Joey Porter Jr. this season since he took over as a starter, it's absolutely amazing to me. If that was Levi Wallace, people would be going ballistic over it. Porter cannot continue playing the way he plays. It's that simple. And they're telling him every week, and he's just not listening. He's immediately running over to the sideline, talking to the coaches. He's all angry and demonstrative. It's like, dude, you held him like 4 times. They're not going to let you get away with that anymore. Okay?
Yes.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not at all surprised. And yes, that should have been called. That was absolutely a penalty. Not even close.
And he got bailed out in the end zone. I thought they were going to call that in the end zone, but I guess they were allowing the corners to play a little bit physical. But I thought that was a play where
they didn't call a whole lot of penalties in this game. There's nothing really ticky-tack about it either. The ones that I saw were pretty legitimate. So they,
I think he
tend to let him go when you're doing that.
I think he was on. I think the refs were on the clock. They're like, "Let's get out of here, man. It's Christmas. I'm trying to get home. Let's wrap this up, buddy. No penalty, no flag. Come on, let's get up out of here." The J Grayson jumps in. Let Hans Jr. be. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is Hans Jr. He is absolutely. But it was a fantastic win from the Steelers again.
I was going to go with Joey hand job, but probably won't.
Joey and Jay.
There we go, Joey and Jay. Where's the second J come from?
Joey Hands Jay, or you could call him.
Should have called him in the end zone, to be
or
fair.
you could call him the hand jive. If I'm going back into my movie references, maybe he was a fan of Grease and he watched everybody in Grease do the hand jive. Oh, do the hand jive, baby. My bad singing. Yes, I watched Grease numerous times as a kid. I've watched Grease probably about 50 times. I always wanted to fly in a flying car like John Travolta at the end of the movie. Hey, man, Hands Jr. is legit. Jazz Hands Jr.
Yes, here we go. That's not bad.
That's pretty good. Jazz hands. But a great victory from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Want to wish again before we get out of here, everybody out there, want to wish you guys a very Merry Christmas coming up. Big up to Mel, big up to Corey, Grayson, Call Me Co. Big up to everyone who's contributed via Super Chat to the program.
Happy ending joke. We probably shouldn't be making the happy ending jokes. The Sean Watson is too close.
Joey Happy J. But if you can, please, man, the link is out there for the super chat, or excuse me, for the GoFundMe for Doug Farrar. If you feel so inclined, please hit that and please contribute. Again, Neil, thank you for the journey. Thank you. I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic Christmas in the Coulong house. Hopefully, it's not a minus 75.
It's balmy, downright balmy, high 30s probably.
Nice.
Grass still on the ground.
Nice.
We barely had any snow. This is a Pittsburgh-like winter to this point.
Nice. You're outside playing flag
pay
football
for in like 2 weeks. Just watch. Thanksgiving, yeah, we wouldn't normally do it now. Thanksgiving would be the absolute cutoff, and that's pretty punishing. Wouldn't do it now, but it definitely a happy or Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you, Lance. It's been a blast yet again this season. We've been doing this for a while. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and every time at this point of the year, the Steelers are barely treading water.
Steelers are doing exactly what they're doing.
Yes,
duration of the entire show. Every year we're live on pins and needles waiting at the end. I remember that Ravens game.
They'll win the next two, and you know they're going to win the next two games.
Wouldn't surprise me.
They're going to win the next two games and miss the playoffs on a made field goal late in some game.
That happened last year. You know, we've already seen this. This is the thing. This is what drives everybody crazy about Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is the king of responding to a 3-game losing streak with a 4-game winning streak. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if he was to pull something like that off, just because why not? You know, this team defies any and all logic on a year-to-year basis. And
yes, it does.
Right now, I don't see why that's going to change. By the way, Bison legend Easton Stick starting at quarterback for the Chargers. The game is
and by the way, speaking of Bison legend, what's the name? I wrote his name down. What's the name of the offensive lineman
for Cordell Volson?
No, the Jonah.
No, I texted you that. Jonah Williams played at Alabama. Cordell Volson, the right guard, is from NDSU.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Jonah is the gift. He's the gift that keeps on giving.
I bet they love that Antonio Brown or the Orlando Brown signing for the Bengals.
You know, he's giving out sacks.
That dude got whipped. He's not going to be happy with film tomorrow.
He's giving out.
Gave him a beating today.
Yikes. But with that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you, Anthony Picano. Merry Christmas, Steeler Nation. And with that, Merry Christmas, Big Mel. We are going to get out of here. Please, as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Ghosted.
Merry Christmas, all.
Merry Christmas.